So, um, on what I want to talk about today is kind of metaphysical, really. If you've read the series that I put out pretty recently, which was the Blue Raspberry session, I put it out on on Inkit, so everybody can read it. If you want to read it, you can. But it's where Frosty is talking to Mr. Blue. And I'm just going to say for this iceberg, Mr. Blue is me. So now this iceberg is really dedicated to Mr. Blue. Now, Mr. Blue has kind of a problem. Mr. Blue has always, seen people do certain things, that Mr. Blue doesn't really understand. Not short of he gets it to a certain degree, but he doesn't understand why people will go through it and then why people will do it, knowing that it's not a good thing to do from a societal lens. Now these things obviously, or maybe unobviously, are drugs. So Mr. Blue does not do drugs. Mr. Blue has a lot of friends that do have a good time doing drugs. Mr. Blue has had significant others who have done drugs, but Mr. Blue has not partaken in these drugs himself. Now, this is not short of saying that Mr. Blue doesn't understand to some degree why somebody would partake in these drugs, but this is more to say that Mr. Blue doesn't really understand why drugs are bad, since so many people in Mr. Blue's life have done drugs besides Mr. Blue. Now, so this changing the difficulty, level 2. Okay. I kind of lost level 11. I'm nowhere near level 11. I guess I gotta start with story mode, see what they do there. But anyway, Tryon or whatever. So Mr. Blue is trying to look into why drugs are bad and why it's not accepted as a certain form of currency. Humans have used different types of currency throughout history. So seashells, jewels, minerals. They've also used women at some point. Mr. Blue understands that drugs could have been used at that same time. Now, Mr. Blue does have a friend that is from China. Mr. Blue has read Babel. If you haven't read Babel, maybe I'll put it on the screen at some point. But Babel is a novel that is very dark academia-ish. So it's based on dark academia, and it's centered around this person named Robin. I don't even know how I remember this shit. But it's centered around this person named Robin. Robin has a sort of power of translation, and the power of translation is actually like a superpower or a magical ability in this series. Now, this is kind of fantasy, historic fantasy, this novel. It's one of my favorite novels of all time. Even though I haven't read many novels, mostly I can say maybe I've read 200 to 300 novels in my life. But this is one of my favorites, next to Pachinko. Now, Robin is an orphan. He's been taken by a white guy, raised up by this white guy as an orphan. I'm not going to spoil the whole plot and the twists and everything, but basically this is happening during the opioid crisis in China. There's some people you can blame, there's some people you can't blame in the whole historic event of that. But that's was kind of my indication that drugs can be really, really bad, especially when used as a bargaining chip for something in exchange for something, right? The opioid crisis. So I want to do a deep dive, at least in this iceberg, this live iceberg, while I'm playing this game where I don't really need to think or do anything. And in this deep dive, I'm really just gonna go really deep into why drugs are not used as currency anymore and why drugs are bad. Well, they're bad coping mechanisms. The thing that you should take in with a grain of salt is that coffee and sugar is kind of considered as a type of drug, in my opinion. So because of that, and also because of certain medications considered a type of drug, right? You have to take everything that I say and go through here with a grain of salt. Just like every study that you see, there isn't objective truth to everything. It's more of like the majority of these things lead to this conclusion, right? So kind of like how hand sanitizer kills 99% of germs, right? Hand sanitizer kills 99% of germs, so does not 100%, right? Nothing is 100%, right? So anyway, let's start at the basis. Why doesn't Mr. Blue do drugs? So Mr. Blue will tell you Mr. Blue doesn't do drugs because Mr. Blue didn't have the finances to do drugs. Now, Mr. Blue grows up. He's in a situation where he's offered drugs. Mr. Blue still does not do the drugs, even though he does have money to do drugs. Why doesn't he do that? Is that because of the sunken cost fallacy? Is that because of identity? Or is that because of a sense of pride? And what would happen if Mr. Blue did happen to get addicted to this drug? So let's go down the line here and look at what would be the bad sides of that. So let's type it in. Mr. Blue. Hold on a second. Standard. We're going to. No, not deep research. I think we're just gonna do some studies and learn. And then we'll do extended. So Mr. Blue is offered some drugs. Let's say he's offered. What's a good drug to start off with? Very common drug, marijuana. Why exactly is being addicted to this drug a bad drug? To this drug a bad thing if Mr. Blue is happy. So a lot of people just want happiness out of life. A lot of people just want to cope with their coping mechanism. So another question: if this drug helps Mr. Blue cope with his day-to-day issues, why exactly is this? How could this be seen as a bad thing. So we're trying to see how that could be seen as a bad thing, because I automatically just put it in a good camp just because Mr. Blue is doing things to make himself happy, right? He's not hurting anybody, he's making himself happy. So what's wrong with, being happy? A little bit of happiness, right? Nothing's wrong with that. People tell us, do what makes you happy. You only got one life to live, etc. Only God can judge you, which is not true. You get judged every day by everybody, even yourself. So if Mr. Blue is addicted to a substance but happy, what is bad about that? He's happy. You only have one life to live. Also, Mr. Blue is addicted, and also Mr. Blue's addicted to drugs, but he's also coping with his problems healthily because of the support of the drugs. So what exactly is the harm when it comes to that? Especially when people say, like, marijuana and weed don't really have any bad or long-standing negative side effects, right? Some people say that it does cause psychosis. Some people do say, not some people, I would say most people say that it is really bad to smoke marijuana and weed while your brain is developing. So before, I would say that before the age of 25, 24, sort of in that area, smoking weed is just not gonna do you very good things. And if it does do you any good things, it's kind of like good at the moment, but later on down the line you may see the effects, right? Maybe akin to Snoop Dogg when he was talking about the Drake and Kendrick beef, and he was rooting on Drake for 1 second, and Kendrick was disappointed in him. Snoop Dogg his brain cells are not all there. That's what I would attribute that to it, because it's not like he's picking a side per se. He just doesn't really like, he's not really paying attention, if that makes sense. He doesn't see it as a big deal, right? He doesn't see it as a big deal that it actually is. More precisely. But yeah, moving on, let's see what the result of that was. So my results are, great question. Quick checking first. So this is a thought experiment. No, it's not from my own life. It's for a character in the story. I'll keep it neutral either way. Here's a simple frame that we can use, then test together. Why addiction can be bad, even if Mr. Blue is happy. So happiness does not equal health or freedom. Addiction is defined by impaired control or harm. Can't cut down, lots of time spent using, problems at work, school, and relationships, not by how happy you feel during the high. Tolerance plus withdrawal, shrinking equals shrinking returns. So your tolerance, basically what they're talking about is tolerance. Once you get addicted, once you're doing your drugs, it takes a certain amount of the drug for you to be satisfied, right? So you're not going to be satisfied with the drug unless you take a certain amount, a certain threshold. Your threshold is going to get up and up and up and up. It's going to keep going up the more that you take the drug, the more that you're relying on the drug, until you get to a point where you're not even high anymore. You just kind of do it because it's more of a habit, right? It's a habit, it's your ritual, is what you do. It's something that made you feel really, really good in the past, and so it's kind of like your coping mechanism. You're using it, you're relying on it, you're falling back on it. Now, relying on a substance that is not yourself is kind of a bad thing in a sort of way. But people could point at social interaction as a sort of reliance on something out of yourself too, because humans are social creatures typically. Most typically. I would say the majority of humans are social creatures, regardless of what people say, regardless of what men are going through. Every human needs social interaction, and the prison system where people are put into isolation, right? Solitary confinement. Why is that a punishment? Because you're alone. Solitary confinement. People literally go crazy from putting in solitary confinement, right? Lose their minds, right? It's the most inhumane form of torture, right? So I would say social stuff is a little different, because social stuff is more of like to keep your mental health balanced. And when it comes to drugs, it could be a coping mechanism for your mental health, but if you're relying on it to the point where you're just doing it not to get any sort of satisfaction, but because you're addicted and because it's a sort of habit and you don't get any enjoyment, you don't get anything out of it, then I would say it's a detriment instead of being something that is helping you, right? It's harmful.